Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to give a talk about the V-22 Osprey. It's a different platform. Most of you have never seen it, and it's operated by the United States Air Force and the Marine Corps. It's a really unique platform, and I learned something today. I didn't know Kurt Mueller was a helicopter pilot. He looks too clean. I thought Kurt Mueller was the JAG or chaplain. He starts asking me questions about the cockpit of a VH-22, so I've got the answers for you. Anyway, so next slide. So if you really want to know a lot about this platform, it's the book called The Dream Machine. It's a quick read. The platform has been around for like 22 years. It took 20 years for it to come operational, and it's a very unique platform. And you'll get a chance to see it in operation. Just push down on it. This is what it looks like. The Marine Corps version they use, and the United States Air Force version of rototip lights. It's a very, very different platform, as you'll get a chance to see. It's basically a very high-speed helicopter, like about 320 knots, and it does something that no other helicopter can do. Is basically go from basically a hover to about 300 knots very quickly once it gets going. As you can see by the who built it, it really started way back in 2007 when they started putting it all together. It had really, really heavy growing pains because of the complexity of the way the platform was built. And another slide here, I'll show you, you'll get a chance to see why. The Marine Corps really needed something like this. The Marines here that served in Vietnam were used to getting on and off CH-53s and the CH-46, the Sea-Knight. That platform was basically getting worn out, and the Marines really need something for their QRH, the quick reaction force, what the Marines are basically known for. And this platform would suffice that. So it was really needed very, very badly. As you can see by the diagram, it's a pretty complex piece of equipment. For my pilot friends in here, like myself, most hydraulic systems in airplanes, even the fighters that I flew and the helicopters, were 3,000 PSI. This helicopter uses 6,000 PSI hydraulics, which is phenomenal. The problem is that it has a very small reservoir, and if you take a hit, the reservoir goes away like right away, and you got to land it really quickly. In a couple of special operations that have been ongoing in our fight against ISIS, we've lost several of these helicopters already. Well, these platforms I really call them because they're really not helicopters, and it was because of hydraulic issues. But once they get all that stuff squared away, it's a unique platform, to say the least. How did we do the video? This is a video, and you can see how this thing goes up. It's all self-contained. It requires no ground unit by itself. The blades fold and the entire wing folds. And it was a requirement by the Marine Corps so that it could fit aboard aircraft carriers and their helicopter carriers. You can imagine being a crew chief on one of these platforms. This was an engineering miracle, to say the least. So once it's folded up, you can just roll it right on an aircraft carrier or an LST, and it's ready to go. The next one is even more amazing, to watch it unfold. You have to have a lot of trust for the helicopter pilots like myself and Kurt. I never beat with helicopter pilots, which is different. Anyway, the blades, the hinges are unbelievable how they're able to unfold, have that much rigid, and still fly. All right, the big thing about the Osprey, it has a tremendous amount of range, and the Air Force versions are air refuelable. The special ops guys that are down at Hobart, they use it for special ops. In fact, they just pulled off one heck of a rescue in northern Africa to rescue some aid workers that were being captured by the bad guys over there in North Africa. They flew all the way from the special ops base in England all the way down there at night using NVGs with some SEAL team guys and rescued the people and flew it back. It was an unbelievable rescue. The big thing that would help the Marine Corps is, as you can see by this thing up here, the combat range of the CH-46 was rather small compared to what the combat radius is for the Marines using the Osprey. And they needed that type of range to get the quick reaction forces where they were needed. It's had its issues. So once again, like I mentioned, a 6,000 PSI hydraulic system, it's lightly armored because of weight. In fact, the transfer tube that runs the full length of the wing so that in the event you lose an engine on one side, it can still power the other side, is carbon fiber, if you can believe it, because everything is very, very lightweight on there. For my helicopter pilot guys in there, it cannot auto-rotate. Yes, it does not auto-rotate. So if you unfortunately lose both engines, you're SOL, as we say, okay? The big thing how you know that this platform is so unique, usually when the United States comes out with a platform like the F-22 or F-16 or even our C-130, you see the Soviets or the Chinese replicate it. They haven't tried to replicate this. They haven't tried to build one that looks anything like this because this is so technology advanced. Now the next slide. The Army is right now the contract is already out. Bell has already won the contract to replace the Black Hawk with the V-280. So you're going to see more and more of these tilt rotor things come out. This is what the 280 will look like. There's already a flying demonstrator out there. That's what it will look like, full tilt building. I'm not a big fan of this being in really close combat, having seen what happens to some of the V-22s, but we'll see what happens later on down the road. Now, the next slide is going to be kind of, for my helicopter people in there, myself, this airplane, this platform is extremely difficult to fly. It has a lot of fly-by-wire stuff in it, and you have to be really careful with it because for my helicopter pilot,
in the summer of 2017, the USS Green Bay San Antonio-class amphibious transport dock performed a mission to Queensland, Australia. In early August, August 5th, a U.S. Navy V-22 Osprey multi-mission, tilt-rotor military aircraft crashed while attempting to land on the ship. Footage of the horrific crash has emerged for the first time. The video shows that at a reduced landing speed and the execution of a landing maneuver, the aircraft fell sharply down to the ship's deck, and the left engine tilted and hit the deck. The video is an amateur cell phone shot by a sailor aboard the USS Green Bay. Realizing, the sailor, that the situation is too dangerous, he starts running and interrupts the video.
So that's it. I'll take some questions if you have any questions.
So if it doesn't auto-rotate, what are the emergency procedures that they are trained on how to deal with?
It doesn't auto-rotate.
Well, I can understand because there isn't the system is not like a regular rotor system on a helicopter.
It's hard to say. All I know is it doesn't auto-rotate. That's all I really know. And that if you lose, you haven't really lost both. You'd have to lose both engines to really be in trouble.
Redundant hydraulics? Does it have redundant hydraulics?
Yeah, it does have redundant hydraulics. The problem is the redundant hydraulics don't give you the full control authority that you want. It's sort of like the A-10. The A-10, if you get it all shot up, it goes into manual reversion. So the standby hydraulic system will let you get away from where you're in trouble at, but it's not for long distance flying.
Have him explain again, like you told me, how they control the angle.
Okay, so Kurt was asking me how they control the tilt. It has a cyclic for the helicopter pilots. It has a stick, and it has a collective, but the collective really doesn't move. It's sort of like the CH-47 doesn't have a collective. It has a thrust lever, but it has a little roller on the top. So you roll the little thumb wheel forward to rotate the nacelles forward to get into airplane flight, and as you approach where you want to land, you roll it back, and it becomes a helicopter, okay? And now you can only roll it forward so much because the blades are very long, so they still always have a forward tilt to them. You can't really put them totally straight forward. You can only do that in flight. It recognizes with the radar altimeter where you are, all right? And also it has 6 CRT screens. It's really electronic cockpit. So it's, like I said, it's a very difficult platform to fly. They've had a lot of accidents with it, but they're getting better and better with it. Any questions? Yeah.
What additional limitations are being overcome for the Army to come up with something like this for the Army?
You're asking a lot of questions that those of us who have been in the rotary wing field said the same thing. It's a maintenance nightmare. The Marine Corps have had a lot of hard time maintaining this platform, especially in heavy dust conditions like they were in Iraq and in Afghanistan. You got to remember the engines and everything are inside those 2 large nacelles, and that it's going to be a maintenance issue, to say the least, for the Army to maintain.
How do they maintain single engine operation?
I'm sorry, what?
How do they maintain single engine operation?
It maintains single engine just like the Chinook does. It has a transfer case, so if the engine fails on one side, there's a tube. That tube, I said, that's made out of carbon fiber that goes right through the center, and then it goes up the other side. But you got to remember that wing swings, so there's like a big gimbal in there, and that's in a clutch assembly. And that's the problem they've been having lately with it. That clutch assembly has been failing at really, really bad locations. And luckily the guys have been able to put the platform down safely. But they've had a couple of accidents where they don't really know if that was the issue.
The
Couple of notes. First of all, the accidents have been almost all in the developmental stage and very few in the operational stage. Since it's been operational, it's been one of the safest aircraft in the Marine Corps inventory. Second of all, the Navy is buying it as well. It has some. And the Japanese are talking about it, and some other countries as well. Finally, the Army is going to replace not just the Black Hawk, but they will also be replacing the Apaches with the V-280 version. Like everything else, it's a cost-benefit analysis. It is very costly, and it is complex, and it has its problems in the developmental stage. But think of the benefit. Twice the load, 3 times the speed, and 5 times the range of the aircraft it replaced. I think it's more than worth it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
So in terms of transport, how many people does it carry? And secondly, what's the nature about the potential for armaments?
So what you said about armament, it's the Air Force one has a little bit of armament on it, but it doesn't. It's really not made for that. It's made to sneak in and sneak out. It usually the Air Force Special Ops guys have a lot of armament on theirs. The Marine Corps guys, not so much because of the weight of the Marines that they wear on when they get on that platform. So they really don't have a lot of armament. The bad thing about this platform, is that it really can't take a lot of hits because of the hydraulics and all that movement in those pylons.
What about weapons? How many people do they carry?
Carry probably around 25 troops, the way the Marine Corps use it, because they carry a lot of stuff on board. The Special Ops guys down at the Hulbert Field, maybe about 7 or 8 guys, because they're just going in to pick up people in clandestine areas. That's about it.
What about weapons?
What,
Weapons?
weapons? They use usually a 50 caliber or sometimes a minigun. That's about it. Oh no rockets. No, they don't have any. They can't do that.
Clyde, you mentioned Air Force and Marine Corps. I just want to let you know it's operational in the Navy. It just replaced the last C-2 Greyhound.
Yeah, good call. Yeah, the Navy is using it for the onboard COD, the carrier onboard delivery. They're getting rid of the C-2, and they're using it for that. The jury's still out whether that's going to really work because of the environment that this platform has to work in. But right now it's working. But I still think later on down the road, they may change their mind and go back to the C-2.
Years ago, when they first introduced this platform, they were trying to sell it in the commercial market. And my company was involved in trying to permit a landing site for one of these on Hutchinson Island for Greg Norman. Now you can imagine having one of these land in your backyard. It's a little bit more than that, but it was quite interesting.
Any more questions? Well, I hope you've enjoyed this presentation, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.